everyone, this is your host, alexbalgood, and this is Leap of Health. And today I'm so pleased to have here Michelle Scoggins. She's a writer, psychologist, creator, speaker, pretty much everything. And we're going to be talking about, we call it pushing before fear, but we're going to be talking about what exactly that is. And, what are those troubles when it comes to the black sheep of the family, because that's your new book that you're coming up with. So before that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be all this.
Absolutely. Well, it started out that I was the black sheep of the family, of course. But yeah, I'm a psychologist, a mother, grandmother. I served in the U.S. Air Force. That was my first little gig as a little wet 18-year-old, and took off into the military. I then became a cosmetologist, which worked into being a drug and alcohol counselor, and eventually landed my feet upon becoming a psychologist. And so I always say it took the scenic route to success, but I think that nonetheless, all of those adventures had really helped me to create in myself a better knowledge of human behavior and how humans respond to certain environmental stressors, and just being able to understand people in general. That I think that sometimes in psychology we don't immerse ourselves enough in the human behavior, and we kind of look at it from above and as an educational standpoint, as opposed to being in the mix with the people. And I found that just my experiences have led me to really just understand people in general. And I really enjoy the time that I spend with my clients and helping them understand like their human-made process. But that's also what brought me to like write my books and really speak about the black sheep, because for so long I felt like being the black sheep was something to be disregarded or to be shameful about. And I really held that story off in secret land and didn't talk about a lot of family challenges or difficulties, because I really saw myself as the problem. But then over time, I really began to see myself and even my clients' experiences as being the black sheep as something really great, and that really the black sheeps hold a lot of power in the family, and the family really works hard to keep that power hushed up. And so this book is going to be really powerful to show people that if you're the black sheep, it's really time to rock that.
I think it has we have given this negative connotation for a long time. And I think it's nothing but just a different personality from the whole family, I think.
Absolutely. Yes. I was more colorful as a kid. I liked reading and I liked performing, and I dressed differently. I physically look a bit different than a lot of members of my family. And so it was easy to target me as that black sheep. But yeah, I really saw life so very differently than they did and still do, in the sense that I've went to work in mental health, and a lot of people in my family either repel mental health and don't think that it's a real thing, and or there's a lot of addiction that goes on in my family. And so I'm really kind of the outsider, and I've been the outsider for a long time. Even me going off to the military was a real outsider move. But definitely it was something taught to me that my personality or me as a person was bad. And I'm here to tell people that different doesn't equate to bad. We all should strive to be our unique selves, because we are all unique and we can't be like any other person. Our fingerprints tell us that everyone has their own individual fingerprints, and we all have our own individual minds and beliefs and feelings and behaviors that we should really honor that in people rather than trying to make everyone conform to the same thing and kind of have a watered down sense of our personalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I've said it before. Sometimes, like when it comes to family, nobody comes with a manual. Parents don't have a manual, kids don't have a manual. We don't know half of the time what's happening within the family interactions, and we do just what we can. We do what we know, and sometimes that could be a lot. Sometimes it could be less than that, right? And so that really gets us to be pointed out as the black sheep of the family, or the different personality, more than everybody. It's acting the same, trying to please mom and dad, but there's always someone, always in every single family, that they're like, well, I kind of don't like that, or I'm curious, why are we doing that and not this other way? And so I think questioning, being different, feeling different sometimes from what everyone in our family acts or behaves, that lets us to be like, point out.
Right, right. And, when we have unhealed family and maybe some generational trauma that, is really becoming popular, and we're beginning to recognize how traits are passed down or how beliefs, behaviors are passed down through families, we're really beginning to see like how a person can be the black sheep and the unhealed family that doesn't allow people to be different within that family unit because of their own fear, or sometimes you're targeted by the parent because you're the child who maybe reflect something bad back to the parent that the parents either wished they were or dislikes in themselves, and they can easily then attack the child for those qualities they don't like in themselves versus taking a look at themselves. And that's tends to be what happens because unhealthy families, breed unhealthy children, and the patterns just continue until luckily the family black sheep shows up and calls it out. But then that person really takes on a bigger burden in the family because they're the ones that are usually rejected or shunned because you're the one that's making them take a look at their own behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you put it that way, because it's so true that you're a reflection of them, and most of the time something that maybe they really dislike with themselves, or something like that. So we really get to be in this position of like, why are they saying I'm the black sheep of the family? I do pretty much everything that everybody else in the family is doing. So tell us a little bit about that. Why do we do that to ourselves? Because that just happens in every single family. Like, I don't think I've known one family where they're like, oh no, we don't have that.
Right. No, that I think that's why this book is going to be huge, because every family has the black sheep, the one that's like, oh, there she goes again. Right. And we've all heard it or been the one that they've said it about. And it comes down to family roles. Every family member has a role in the unit, and dysfunctional families per se make sure that those roles are very tightly knit, because they need the dysfunction of the family to continue in order to feel like it's operational. And so this comes down from the parents or potentially the grandparents, depending on how closely enmeshed the families are. So in more collective families, you might have the grandparents or great grandparents controlling the family roles, where in more of an individualistic, like American society, it might just be the parents are the ones that are in control of that. But they need to make the dysfunction continue. So whether they're trying to hide some physical abuse, or they're trying to hide sexual abuse or neglect in the family, or there's an addiction in the family that they're trying to hide or manage in some way, everyone has to hop into these roles so that that secret continues. Because in dysfunctional families, they don't operate out of health. They operate maintaining the problem. And so it's very confusing, especially to the black sheep, because the black sheep wants to function out of health, not out of the problem. And so you're the first one that's like, hey, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? And they're like, shh, no, wait a minute. We have to maintain the problem. And so we'll find that in every family, there's someone who wants to maintain the problem. And then there's that one person that really wants to be like, but wait a minute, I don't want to be part of the problem, and I don't want to live in the problem.
Yeah, for sure. How do you manage to get out of that cycle as a black sheep? Because I know, a lot of people that gets called that, they eventually get trapped on the cycle where they will pass that again to someone else as they move on in their lives. How do we stop this problem to continue? Because obviously no one likes to be called the black sheep of the family, and no one should be called that. It really can really affect all these individuals that they're just curious, or that they just want to disrupt these unhealthy cycles that sometimes the families are.
Most of the time, the people that are head of the family or head of the dysfunction don't actually see the dysfunction. There is not a big enough problem for them that they need to change it. And as humans, we only want to change that becomes a problem. And they don't see it as a problem, because then they have to kind of confront their own demons and their own issues. And they would rather just continue the problem than deal with themselves. And so the black sheep never really gets out of that role. You either set boundaries and maybe reduce contact or remove contact from the family altogether, or accept being the black sheep, but you never essentially remove yourself from that role. Because what happens is when you try to pull yourself out, it's like you're in a wheel and you've become like a rock in the wheel. Everyone in the family is looking to remove that rock out of the wheel and push you back into your position, especially all of the other children or family members that potentially could become the black sheep if you're not present. Remember, someone has to pick up that role. And so the family will do everything they can to put you in that role. And even if you remove contact with the family, now their speculations confirm that you're the black sheep, because now she doesn't even talk to us anymore, which then confirms that you're the black sheep. So you're the black sheep whether you're present or not. And that's the hardest part of this whole conundrum that we have to accept. There's nothing you can do. The unhealthiness of the family will continue with or without your involvement. The only way it'll change is if the family themselves wish to change it as a unit. And that is not likely the case. Most cases, the families don't change it. So that is also the importance of the book, is showing and teaching people how to navigate these muddy waters, that I'm just going to accept that I'm the black sheep. There's no way around it. There is no talking rationally or logically to anyone to remove this tag on my back. And what do I do as the result of being the black sheep? And how do I create health in myself and for my lineage? So my children, how do I create health for them? If that means separation, how do you also do that in a safe and healthy way? And so it's a big learning experience through this book of taking people from identifying being the black sheep and how to walk out of it feeling confident and feeling like you've done the right thing for your life and for your mental wellness and health, despite how the family sees you.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's just really important, because sometimes people might get hung up on like, well, no, I want my family to change. But obviously, we're all in a different place when it comes to healing and our journey and everything that we're doing to better ourselves. Our families might not be on that same point where we are. So I think it's important that you mentioned that, that might, with or without you, that might not change, but it's what we do to change. What are some of the things that we can do to actually start our families without, breaking those chains that obviously for generations have led to us be that black sheep without guilt, right?
Right. I think, it really starts with forgiveness. For myself, I was angry for so many years that I didn't get the parents I felt I deserved or get the family I felt I deserved. And that led me to years of just being stuck, of wanting them to change, or if I could people please a little bit more, I could fit in better. And, that works for a little bit of time, but you never really truly fit in with that unit ever. And so just learning to forgive and understand that this was probably passed on to them as well. And because you've done the self-care work or you've went to therapy yourself, you began to understand at a deeper level about yourself and your behavior than they have. And so that puts you at a different advantage level to, it's a bittersweet, I guess you could say. The more you know, then the more you know, and you have to do something about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
But learning how to be loving, learning that love doesn't have to feel bad or vulnerable, or that you don't have to be scared to love your children. If you're feeling angry or resentful about the children, beginning to look within yourself, even if it's your spouse that you're feeling resentful. So what you want to focus on is your family unit, the unit you've created. That means your spouse, your children, and everyone on down the road from there. What are the things that you may be carrying on that's similar to what you've learned?
Mm-hmm.
If you feel, again, a resent or a negative emotion about one of the family members without cause, you're not sure where this came from, that's a perfect opportunity to dive in and see what's really happening. Is this reality or is it not? And what I teach a lot of my clients, and is in the book, is reality testing. I call it taking your thoughts to court. So thinking of a court of law, you're going to court and you have to prove the facts. The judge doesn't care about your emotions and how you feel and what you think should happen and all of that. You need to prove the facts. And that helps us then kind of restructure our thought processes and look at what was broken and recreate it in a way that is healthy, because we're looking at facts and not what our emotions have driven us to believe, so to say. So there's a lot of kind of just transitioning and restructuring of your thoughts and your emotions that takes you out of the black sheep, because the black sheep inevitably feels like they have the fatal flaw. There is something innately wrong with them. They have to please people to have them around. Inevitably, people will reject or abandon them. And so you have to be able to correct these feelings that you have that have been hardwired. And your spouse and your children are often going to, pluck at those emotions, where you have to look at what is reality and what was taught to me to be in this family unit and what no longer works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think That's just such a great point to make. I think we keep going on these loops of what we know about the family or what they think of us. And sometimes that's just like not true at all. Because for starters, when they call us like, oh, you're just the black sheep of the family, you don't understand, you don't this, you don't that, whatever it is. So now we have this loop of like, well, I'm like the less successful, I'm probably like the less smart, I probably don't understand, blah blah blah. So you have all these statements that are not even yours.
Right.
You have all these voices within you as you go through life, and you're hearing your siblings, your parents, if there's more to it, like your grandparents. Now you have all these people as voices guiding you through life, and they're not even real.
No, yeah, there are all these internalized voices you've picked up over the years, and they're telling you things. And I learned this even through my own family, is when I would, say I was going to try something new, or I was going to start a new job, or when I, thought to open my own private practice, or even going back to school to be a psychologist. I was already 31 years old and had 5 children and a husband. And my mother was like, wow, 8 years, that's a lot of school. That's a long time. And my response, is in 8 years, hopefully I'm still alive. It didn't kill me. And in 8 years, I'll be a doctor forever. And, I've now been a doctor for 8 years. So the amount of time I've put in school, now I've been a doctor for the same amount of time. And what I learned from that experience and the other experiences of when families telling me I'm doing the wrong thing, they're projecting their own fear on you. So the black sheep tends to be able to go along with the flow. They're the ones that are the risk takers. They're the ones that seem aloof to everything else that everyone else is doing, not because you want to. That's how you got along in your family. You had to learn to kind of be aloof and be risky and do all of the things to kind of, you know, um, honor your own personality. And now they're projecting their fears upon you because their ultimate goal in this dysfunctional family is to keep it all together. So you're, going out on a tangent or trying something new and risky really risks that family unit falling apart. And so when you're in this dysfunctional family, it isn't about the individual at all. It's about keeping that family unit together.
Isn't it like that? Just sounds crazy.
It does, right? I know it. Even like sitting down and putting all my life experiences into this and all of my clients' life experiences and just like putting it all together, I'm like writing it out. And it's like, this is like crazy in the making. Like, who could ever really do this? And, it comes down to families and people in general are on autopilot. They just do as they do. They don't do as they know. They just are walking through life as zombies. They get up each day and rinse and repeat. And so therefore they're not really insightful to who they are, who they supposed to be. And even coming from my family, they don't believe in God. So I'm, a believer, and therefore I'm really on that end of the spectrum of that girl. She's I don't know what she's thinking. And so, just kind of taking that context of, sometimes when you get people who are non-believers or think that they have to do it all themselves, they really strive to keep that family unit in its sickness.
And I think it goes both ways, because whether your family were not believers and now you are, it happens both ways. Sometimes families are super believers, and then you get this person that starts questioning, but why?
Sure.
Why should I do that to you? I'm feeling this other thing might be better for me, whatever that is, obviously. But yeah, it's just talking it out loud. It really sounds like a sci-fi or something. Our families and a lot of families in general, they're just being so accustomed to just being living these ways, right? And but the cool thing now, and I always say it too, we live in such an amazing time in human history, where we have the internet, we have social media, we have books, we have so many tools that we can use to really better ourselves, to heal ourselves, to make everything just better, especially when it comes to health and mental health and physical health. We have so many tools that we can use, that we can really take so fast and reach out to people and to groups and all these things that we could do now. So yeah, it's just talking it out loud. It just sounds like it's so crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. All the tools that we have is so amazing. And that is really the reason why the book came on my heart to write it, because the moment that I realized I wasn't the problem, that it wasn't my fault, I didn't do anything to put myself in that position, it was very freeing. And to free myself to heal and to forgive and to move forward, even though it means I move forward without most of my family, because I have very limited contact with my family now. And it's because that's what's healthiest for me. And that was really a hard decision to make, because we've been taught to please those family members all of our lives, and serve their needs and not our own. But once I realized that I didn't make this circle, I didn't put myself in this position, and truly my difference is something to really celebrate and to share and to be with other people and to help them share their differences, it really changed the game for me. And that is when I started writing the book, because I want to help other people who feel like have been in this position, that you can break through this. And even if you have to reduce contact or have no contact, you can still be successful, and you can still find love. You can still find family, because family isn't just who we were birthed to. Family are people who love us and are there. They're a community. And so I want to teach people that, you may have had this mark on you as a very young child, probably 2 to 3 years old, before you even knew what a sheep was. And you have the power then to change it all. You really have the power to move it around and to change it to something that feels safe and comfortable for you.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the tools you mentioned in your book for people that perhaps are really going through something like that, that they've been living in that position within the family, and that that they want to break through all that? What are some of the tools or some of the teachings that you share in your book for people to move on and start fresh?
Right. Yeah. Setting boundaries, first and foremost, understanding that boundaries are important in every relationship. I don't care, even if it's in your marriage, you deserve boundaries. And learning that they can be safe, and they don't have to be respected by the other party, because it's not for them, it's for you. Learning how you're to realize that your voice matters and that your needs matter. Taking small steps to get your needs met, whether that be saying no when you typically say yes. So teaching people how to start out slow. You can't just go from, black sheep, people pleaser, to no contact, I'm on my own, killing it. You gotta, take steps to get there. Forgiveness, again, was huge for me. Setting the boundaries, and enforcing them, knowing that I matter, knowing that and if you have a hard time knowing that you matter, grab that from people who are around you. So if you have a best friend or a significant other, or even your children, listen to the words that they're telling you and how you're special to them in their lives. And then start replacing those old voices that we've had that told us that, we're always doing this or we're always doing that. And why are we always whatever? We're not important. And start replacing those voices with the voices of the people who do love us and are around us, so that we can start shifting that perspective that we have. Be mindful of the things that you're good at. And I am a big believer in journaling. Journal down every single day things that you're grateful for, things that you're good at, things that people tell you that you're good at. Learning that your successes aren't always being self-centered and tooting your horn, but that you are allowed to have successes and they're good to share with people. But you might also be careful who you share them with. You want to share them with people who are going to be happy for you, and not those people that are going to judge or reject your choices or your good news. So there are a lot of tools that I teach clients and that I will teach in the book of how to navigate through this and how to really see the successes that you have had to this point, the power that you have that you've minimized all your life because you've had to, in order to fit in this family unit, because the last thing they want is you to have power.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning how to really sit with yourself and be like, wow, I'm fucking cool.
Yep. I think we definitely we miss that so much sometimes, like how amazing one person can be just
Mhm.
because they've been living with the family's voices all along.
Mhm. I get so many clients that I see that I think they're amazing, and not just because they're my clients. They're pretty amazing people, but they can't see it themselves because the families have, broken them down so much to meet their own needs. And I think that's important for us to see too, is we all have needs, and you serving your needs and they don't impact or impede on anyone else should not be felt shameful or guilty that you're doing those things, because they have to be done. It's no different than eating. We have to eat, we have to breathe air. And why should we feel guilty that we're breathing air when it's a necessity? So there's a lot of things in life that you would be surprised people don't do because they feel they're hurting someone else. Like simply telling someone, no, I can't, when you truly can't, they feel guilty over.
Mm-hmm.
So teaching people that your needs are very important and you have a right to have needs. And if people tell you that your needs aren't important or their needs come first, it might be fine time to evaluate that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it started, as you were talking about earlier, just seeing what's true and what's not true.
Absolutely. Yeah, because our feelings kind of get all bottled up and create a reality that really isn't a reality. It's based on our emotions, right? I use this analogy a lot in my therapy practices. I'm a big football fan. And I say, life is kind of like a football game. We have two teams, and then we have the score, the final score. That's the facts. We know the score at the end. Nothing about that can change. Now, how we feel about the score depends on who we like, what team we're rooting for. So if our team wins, we're really happy about that factual score. If our team loses, then we're upset about the score. The one true thing is the score never changes. It depends on your perspective of the score. And I think if we can really take that perspective and idea and carry that out into life, we'll see like there are the facts. And am I feeling a certain way about this situation because of the fact or the emotional perspective that I took about the fact?
Mm-hmm. And with that, it's just people will see that there's so many things. They will feel so different about just about everything, because once we know what's factual, once we know what's real, and what's real for us too, I think that will make a big difference in our lives. And that's just a reminder, because I feel like sometimes we know the information, but we're so wrapped up in this negative loop that we forget what it is.
Yeah, we do. It's, there's a difference between knowledge and actual change. We can know the thing we need to do. I mean, the big one is everyone says, especially at the beginning of the year, I need to lose weight or I need to get healthy or eat healthy, right? We know what we're supposed to do, but how many people, end that New Year's resolution by February because the change is hard. And so we may know the information, but changing, we have to realize no one's truly motivated for change. And if we take out motivation as part of the equation and we just know change is part of the change, then we can actually create that change for ourselves and stop looking at being motivated to change.
It's like we all want that motivation. That motivation makes things feel easier for like a quick second.
Yep.
But then that's why we never follow through.
No, that's why resolutions really suck, because we don't follow through, because we think since we've made this resolution, now we should be motivated to do it. Well, as the behavior increases, it becomes then a routine. But right before the behavior becomes a routine, our motivation drops off. So we become unmotivated in 2 weeks, but the habit doesn't form a habit for 30 days. So those additional 2 weeks that we're not motivated, but the habit isn't stuck, that's where most people fall off, is in week 3 or 4 of doing something, because they think they're supposed to remain motivated, and just isn't true. You just have to week 3, week 4, week 5, keep pushing and push through that uncomfortable feeling of not wanting to do it, and allowing it to actually becoming a habit.
Yeah. And in this case, it's not just a diet. This is a long time life change. So imagine that, right? You have to really know the facts and move forward and know that this is a lifetime commitment to yourself, where you want to have boundaries, you want to, be better for yourself, break chains and all these things. So it's a big thing.
It's huge. And the hard part that people usually come up against with this is that the family's going to do whatever they have to do to put you back in that position. So they're going to promise being better. They're going to promise these things. They're going to get angry at you. They're going to project onto you. They're going to try to make you feel guilty. They're going to try to make you feel like you've created all these problems. And so most of the time people go back into the family unit because it's so hard to fight against all of these negative feelings that the family places upon you when you're trying to do what's healthy for you. A truly healthy person or healthy family will understand the changes you're trying to make and will support that change. And they'll say, what can I do to help that? What can I do for you? I'm here for you. And they won't say, well, this is how you make me feel. Why are you doing this to us? So you think I'm the problem. They'll do all of these things in order for you to go back into your position. And, it is a really hard battle. And that's why most of us, at least momentarily, will reduce contact or just cut off contact altogether, because the unhealth of what they're trying to do is really impactful, and it's hard to manage your growth while they're continually trying to pull you back into the crap. And so that's why most people tend to kind of pull away from the family a little bit, at least in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a bad thing too, because I feel like with that, guilt might come to those people that want to change, because now you have this guilt of like, oh, I haven't talked to my family in this long because I'm trying to get better, and so they're trying to be better, yet they're creating all these also negative feelings because of what the family might say or do, or all these things. But yeah, I think, you know, ourselves are our better investment,
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. And
so,
just thinking that, you're gonna be the problem child, no matter if you're in the family or not. You have to think, does it feel better to have the peace of not being put in this position? Or, the occasional guilty feelings that come up because you're not part of the family. Because that will come up. I've had that experience myself, and what I often recommend is getting into a support group or getting into a group of people who also have no contact with their families. There are a couple support groups out there that are based around, family no contacts, because those people actually understand what you're experiencing, and they won't do what the typical person would do. Because I've had this happen to me, and people will say, well, you only have one mom and you only have one dad. Like, like you're supposed to be tied to them. And so you get this really
yeah,
guilt-stricken conversation with a person. My response, hopefully you allow cursing on the podcast.
I
Okay. My response is, if I only get one, then why do they have to be dicks?
exactly.
It's their choice, right? So if I only get one, they only get one of me. Why do they have to behave that way? And so I refuse to take on shame or guilt based upon their behavior. And I definitely teach that, because that's what we typically get when you say, oh, I don't talk to my family, or I don't talk to my parents. They're like, oh, wow, why not? What's wrong? You really should, because you only get one. Your mother brought you into this world. You get all
Yeah.
of those kind of things that come forward. And, I lived in that bondage for a really long time, knowing that and feeling that. And I know, being a parent, I would also hate if one of my children didn't want to speak to me, but I would have to honor their position. I'd have to honor what they're going through, because whatever they're feeling, they have a right to that feeling. And I have to just honor that and know that I support them through that experience. And, hopefully my ability to give them that space allows them to see maybe what they were thinking wasn't actually correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just honor your growth, and what you're going through. And it's funny that you said that, because I've heard that a lot, as I was younger. You only get one mom, you only get one dad. And it's one of those things that it's so crazy to hear as a young adult or as a kid, because it just really creates all these guilts. And as I was saying earlier, it's almost like, even all these crazy family things, there's no one at guilt, because parents have no clue what they're doing, kids don't know what they're doing, parents are doing what they know, and that's what it was passed to them. So
Yeah.
it just they have no tools, or they don't know the knowledge of how to like have a better family. So there's all these situations where it's no one is a fault, first of all,
Yeah.
and it just starts with you. If you want a change within you and your future family, then that's all you can do. You can't change people, you can't teach people. Everyone has to do the work on their own, and that's it, pretty much.
That's it. You can have a conversation. And that's something I definitely recommend people to do, is have a conversation with your family, give them the opportunity to understand your perspective, and you go from there. So if you're rejected, your perspective is rejected, they stay firm in their beliefs and how they want to operate their family. You make then the choices and the boundaries that fit for your life. And as a parent, I can say that I've actually went back and had conversations with my children to explain to them I did parent based upon the information that I had at the time and what I knew of parenting. And I know that some of these things were wrong. And I apologize to my children for the things that I know that I've done wrong as a parent, now that I know better. So it's that whole saying that when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
But if you know better and don't do better, now you're on the hook. You are of fault. And that's the thing that I do tell people, is that you can't fault your family for this dysfunction until you've brought the dysfunction to their awareness. Once they have the awareness, they then have the choice. Do they want to make it better, or do they feel comfortable being in their place of dysfunction? And it is their choice. And then you make the appropriate adjustments based on their answers. I never tell people to go in and confront their families, but just have a conversation so that they can understand where you're coming from. And we can do this both directions. We can go up to our parents and grandparents, and we can go down to our children. There isn't anything that stops us from apologizing to our children for being misguided, because you're right. We don't come with manuals. There's no instructions. There's no anything. And there really isn't anyone that is at fault. And that's something that I had to learn. Was I was very angry at my family, and then came to realize, they're at fault now that I've brought it to their awareness, and they decide to not make changes, but they're not at fault for the things that occurred that negatively affected me. And I can forgive them for those things. And I can even forgive them for not wanting to make changes, because change is hard. And, just kind of leaving it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned, it goes both ways. You as a kid and you as a parent could make the changes and try to kind of like, get things right and try to fix the environment within the family. But as we mentioned both, it's within oneself. If they don't want to change, or they're comfortable where they are, there's really nothing you could do but just keep on working on yourself and get your mental health and just really your life in a different direction from the people that wants to be stuck in the same place forever.
Absolutely. Wow.
That was good.
Yeah, right. I know I'm going to have to go back and listen to all of this, because some really good information.
Yeah, for sure. When is your book coming out?
Projected date is June 1st.
Nice.
I hope to have it finished by April and in the editors and being designed in June 1st.
Nice. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing book for everybody to check it out. Before we leave, would you like to tell us something else or share something about what you're doing?
Yeah, I think at this time I'm just writing the book and trying to enjoy life.
Yes. That's all we have. For everybody that wants to get in contact with you or has any more questions about this topic or just mental health in general, where can they find you?
They can find me on all social platforms. Dr. DRM Scoggins is my handle on most of those, or my website at drscoggins.com.
Awesome. And I will also put all your information in the show notes too. If by that time this recording gets released, if your book is out, I will definitely put your book information there so people can get a copy of it too. That will be so cool and so amazing for people to check that out. For everybody else, if you guys want to check out my everything that I'm doing, you can find me at alexbalgood.com. You can find me on social media. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, pretty much everywhere. Remember, my book is out. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's called Parents Are Greatest Teachers. Check it out. If you have any questions, DM me. I always reply to everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Doctor, for sharing all this information. It was so cool. Thank you, everyone, again, and have an amazing day.